Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on today's webinar, which we will be exploring the GovReports practice management system. In these sessions, it is suitable for those wanting to get themselves trained on the GovReports practice management platform. And presenting today's sessions is Ali Cochran. She is a registered BAS agent, a principal owner for her own practice, bookkeeping practice. Ali has been using GovReports and the practice management tool since the earlier days, and will share with you the steps to get started on GovReports Office Practice Manager and how to maximize the usability to your advantage and your business. Before I hand over the control to Ali, a little bit of housekeeping. Please raise your hand if you can hear me so that I know this is working for everyone. Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks, Tab. Okay, it seems like some of you can hear me. Yeah, so this session is recorded. If you can't hear me, just check on your sound on your dashboard, the GoToWebinar dashboard, the sound check, and ensure that you got either the computer audio or the microphone or the audio or phone or whatever that you have. Okay, so as I mentioned, this session is recorded and will be posted on our GovReports website, the webinars calendar page after the session. So if you miss a little bit here and there, you can always revisit the session at your convenience. During the session, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to send it through so we can come back to you during the questions time. So, okay, over to you, Ali.
Okay, thanks, Tiana. Now, so for me, I'm going to make sure that you can all hear me as well. So I'm just going to make sure that if you can hear me, if you could just raise your hand. So I'm making sure you can hear my microphone this time. Fantastic. Thanks, Abdullah. Wonderful. So that's good. It's a good indication. And I can see Tiana now. Your video's on, Tiana. Okay, so I am now going to make sure you can all see my screen. So can you all see my screen? Could you please raise your hand? Fantastic. That's a good start. So a little bit of housekeeping. You'll notice that there's a questions area in the GoToWebinar control panel. So you can pop your questions there and either Tiana or I or someone will answer the questions. Sometimes as we go, sometimes I'll stop at the end of a section just to make sure that we're on track and we're keeping the momentum going. So let's get into this now. I'm just making sure all the hands are down, and fantastic. Let us get going into working with GovReports and the My Practice Management. So I'm going to give you the screenshots I've got here are in PowerPoint, but I've saved them in PDF because sometimes the PowerPoint decides to have a little upset. So I've saved it this way so you can see it. And what I plan to do is go through our screenshots first, and then we're going to go into GovReports itself and take you through the steps to do exactly the same thing so you know where to find things. So when you log into GovReports, the very first screen you'll come to here is the bird's eye view. Now that gives you a very quick overview of your GovReports account. It breaks it down into a dashboard here. You can see the lodgements. You can see how many reports are saved, lodged, any today. And it gives you a very, due dates down here. And it gives you a very quick overview of what's happening there. Now, one of the things that's has been new in the last 12 months into GovReports is the fact that the GovReports now integrates with Google Calendar. So when we go to the My Practice and we go to the calendar, it says My Practice down here, the calendar, and you tick the Google box, you'll find that you are able to then schedule things and have them appear from that on that Google Calendar. Now you'll see that the actual dashboard is broken down into the My Lodgements and the My Practice areas. So the My Lodgements is dealing with your SBR stuff. It's dealing with your lodgements like your BAS, your IASs, your payroll tax, STP, etc. Whereas the My Practice is your practice management tool. Now, Once you tick that box, it will ask you if you want to connect to the Google Calendar, and you click on Connect and you select your Google account. And then you follow the prompts to go through and connect. Alternatively, you can also go to the settings and the practice settings, and you'll see Google Calendar setting, and you can click the Connect to Google Calendar there. And you can also disconnect your Google account through those settings, just making sure that you check the Google settings third-party apps make sure that that connection has actually been removed. The other thing I want to draw to your attention is the fact that you have in the top right-hand corner of the screen, in here you'll see this blue, there's the name of the practice, and here we have the little notification bell. So you can also customize those notification settings in your practice, and by default the actual notifications are turned on. So they appear in that top right-hand side of the screen. So when you've lodged something, you'll get a notification. So you'll get different options to choose what notifications you want. So you can see here, notify me when a job is created, allocated, status changed, add comment, etc. So you can see the different notifications. You can customize that to make it suit what is good for your practice. So the following notification alerts will appear in GovReports. So any documents that you've used for the digital authentication program for, that's sending it out for electronic signature. If they're signed or they've been declined, you'll get a notification there. When you lodge your reports through the lodgement area and they're sent for lodgement through the queue, after the process has been completed, that status will update with an alert in that notification area. And if you are using the timesheet functionality here, when the timesheet status has been changed, then you'll get a notification as well. We also have reminders when an event, job or task is added to the calendar and set for a reminder, then that reminder is going to pop up in a window. Now you can snooze those reminders, and the default snooze time is around about 10 minutes, very similar to if you have a reminder in your email, Outlook or Google. So let's take a look at the My Lodgements area and just highlight some of that functionality if you're not already using. Bear with me for a minute, I just saw a question pop up. I'll come back to that one in a second. So the My Lodgements area, you can see that when you look at the My Lodgements, you can see that's broken down into history, which are the ones that have been sent, the saved reports, base payment options, history lodgement, contractor reports, outstanding reports. In here, you can set up with your GovReports so that you have outstanding reports appear. So when the BASs are due for each of your clients, you can have the outstanding reports set up for those clients so that automatically populates into your outstanding reports window and dashboard so that you can keep on top of your things. You'll also notice that you see a status here of the different types of reports, what's been lodged today, what's saved, etc. Now the My Practice is what we're going to focus on tonight. The My Practice is free with your subscription. And as I mentioned, you have the My Lodgements at the top here, but the My Practice, in the light blue, is then broken down into these different areas. It comes free. It is how you can manage your practice. You can set up jobs, you can schedule jobs, you can set up tasks. You can have templates to make life easier for you. You have jobs that are scheduled. So these are jobs that are already set up and are scheduled to occur. You have My Tasks. So these are the tasks that are set up within the existing jobs. So you can see here that in the job column, you can see the different job numbers here, and they're within the different client ones, and you can see the status of what is happening with those tasks at the moment. Then you have templates. Now they're broken down into 4 areas. You have a default task template, which comes with the packaging. You have custom task templates, which you can design. You have job templates and recurring job templates. So one of the tips I learnt very early on was I couldn't create my job template and make it recurring after I created it. So if you're going to have a job that is recurring in nature, use the recurring job template from the start. It will save you a lot of heartache. So as I said, the default task template GovReport comes with a number of default task templates, or practice management I should say. Now you can use those as they are, or you can use them to develop your own custom template. So you'll see here a couple of them, such as the BAS preparation checklist, the end of year guide, or the payroll end of year checklist. So let's look at creating a task template. So as I said, you can create a task template by either cloning an existing template or creating a new one. Either way, once you have created those, because you have created them and made some modification, they will then appear within the custom task template area, not the default area. So to clone an existing template, go to the default task template menu in the top right of the screen, and then you select clone. So here you'll choose the template name. You're going to give it a name, and you will choose whether or not you're going to share this with all people who have access to your practice management. Now, obviously, if you have a team, you'll want to share these. You might want to share these templates so that when they're allocated certain clients and they need to create different templates of their own, they can clone ones like that. It depends on who's managing that process. And when you click the clone, it brings across all the tasks that have already been set up that are in the default template. But it comes up with a different name because you've given it a different name. And you'll see now that it will now appear in this custom task template. So you'll see these 4 tabs here: the default, the custom, the job, and the recurring. Now, you can use that one that you've just created as a clone as it is, or you can modify the tasks in your new template. So to edit the task, you'll simply click on the task name, edit in the appropriate task areas, remembering we're going to go through a screen of this, so you're going to see how it works. So don't panic if I'm going through this a little bit here in these steps here, but we're going to go through this bit and piece. You can add to the items in the checklist of each of the tasks. Now, when you want to create a task template to begin with from scratch, you go to templates from the right and select new. You give it a name, you create the checklist within your task to complete it, and then you save your template. So you can see here that we have the tasks, and these are your checklists. So you can give it headings and have the items that are for the checklist that need to be completed in order for the task to be complete. Now, if you have a custom task template that you want to make a change to, you can edit your custom task template. So in this one, we have the BAS preparation checklist for MYOB, and I'm going to edit this task here. So each task will have its own edit area. So once I click on the edit here, it will take me in there to be able to make changes. So the first step is creating those tasks and those checklists, because once you've done that, you can now create your job templates. So the job template lets you create a single job template that's not recurring in nature, whereas the recurring job template is the one that you'll use if it occurs on a recurring basis. So things such as quarterly BAS. So you'll select the job template or the recurring job template tab from the screen, and you'll click on the new in the right hand corner, and then you will give your template a name. So you can see now this is a recurring job template that we're setting up on this screenshot. You can see that we've given it a name. If you're using this for billing, you can choose the billing method, the frequency, the start date, and how many occurrences you want to create in advance. So once you create this template, you can tell it that you also want to create one more in advance, so it's ready for the next one. So each time you complete one, it will create the next, and you'll have one there already, and it will create the next one after that. When you're done with filling in all this information and assigning it to who you want it to assign to, you then click on the next. Now with a recurring job template, once again, you can choose to copy an existing custom or default task template or add a task. So as I say in here, one of the reasons we set the tasks up first is you want to be able to add them in when you're creating the job and not having to go out and add them and then come back in. Now once you've copied, you can edit and add further tasks, and once that's completed, you can click on Save. Now when you get to that screen, you now have the ability to actually add this recurring job to all the clients it might apply to. So in this case, I'm doing like a quarterly BAS 0 or something. I would attach to all the clients that I do the quarterly BAS using 0 for, and that way that job template will be assigned against each of those clients. So each of those clients will have a recurring job with all the tasks associated with it in there. So once you click that and attach, you tick the little box to attach to the client at the bottom there. And once you've created your jobs, you're then going to see that they will be sitting in the scheduled job list. Now sometimes something might go a bit funny, or you find you've put the wrong date and you need to get it back into sequence. You can go through and open and edit the schedule to update the timing of it, or delete it in case you have a total change to a client once, or you find that you've created a job template that should have been recurring but you created it just as a standalone job. Now every week on a Sunday evening, you will find the report of lodgements, the DA status, the completed jobs, upcoming jobs will be sent through to your email. But you do have the option to opt out of that report. And when you do that, you go to the settings, my account, and you go to the notification setting, and you'll see the subscribe weekly report. You can untick that and click submit in order to get rid of that one. Okay, looks like that question's been answered. All right, I'm now going to go, and we're going to go through into GovReports itself, so bear with me while I get up on the screen. Hopefully I won't lose my screen here. And I'm just going to move that document out of the way, bear with me for a moment, so that I can move it off the screen altogether and concentrate on showing you how it all works in practice. So let's go through what we actually were talking about from the beginning. So let's look at Google Calendar to begin with. Well, let's look at, firstly, our bird's eye view. So you see here on the left-hand side, the bird's eye view. It's a dashboard, a quick thing here you can see. If I click on my bird's eye view, no, of course, there we go. Just got to log back in. Wrong email address, password. Just bear with me for a moment. Wonderful. Here is my dashboard. This is showing me what reports are overdue. I can have a look at my job summary as well. It's just taking a moment to refresh itself. And you can see here there are any jobs that are outstanding, etc. from this period, and there's nothing at this moment. But you can see that there are 2 jobs that had not been started yet. So if I go to my back to my dashboard, this is showing me my lodgement sort of history. Now all our clients, if we set a client up in this area here, that will flow through to the My Practice. If we go to the My Practice area, you'll also see that the clients appear there. If you have staff working for you, you'll want to make sure they're set up as authorized users with their license so that you're able then to assign tasks to them or jobs to them for completion. As I mentioned before, the My Lodgements, you can see the history. You can see the saved reports, the BAS payment options, the historic lodgement, etc. This gives you a very quick snapshot. You can look very quickly to see which reports have been saved, how long they've been sitting there, have they been signed? Because in here, if you're using, up in this right-hand section here, the digital authentication area, you're able to send it through for signature, and when it's been signed, it comes back as signed, and then you can simply tick on the boxes. And when you do that, you can then simply click the lodge. And Cheryl has, just to let you know, Cheryl's made a comment about she loves the job summary screen. However, you can't see it as her default bird's eye view and always have to change the filter. Would be nice to choose the set and forget. I would agree. That's fantastic. That's some great feedback. Tiana and the team might be able to look at that. Okay.
Yeah, it has been noted down in the wish list. We can implement. That's a good feature.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sandy. All right. So let's look now at Google Calendar, how we mentioned before. Going down into the My Practice, this is the practice management area. As I mentioned, here we see the jobs breakdown. Here we see the time billing, reports, and we have the calendar. So if I click on the calendar here and wait for my screen to respond, you can see that at the moment I have GovReports and Google is ticked. So normally the very first time, if you haven't got it set up, this would be unticked, and you simply tick it to turn it on. And then it will ask you if you want to connect to Google Calendar. You'll select your Google account and you'll follow all the prompts to go through that. So you can see here different jobs are appearing when things are due are now appearing on the Google Calendar. Alternatively, if I go into my settings at the top here and my practice settings, you'll see the calendar setting, and in here this is where you would normally see you could have it as Outlook or you could have it as Google. Here you could have this, if it was already not enabled yet, you would click on this to enable it to follow those prompts as I mentioned. The other thing we talked about were the notifications. You see the little notifications at the top here. So you can see here that someone signed it, and you can see the successful lodgement of an STP report. Once again, in our practice settings, you'll find the notification setting, and in here you can check the boxes that you want in regards to your notification, and then you would simply click Save to save those changes. So you can see here, this one is when a job is done, when a recurring job, when a task. If I go furthermore, if I go back to home, you'll notice here also that it is also picking up. Screen's a bit slow tonight. I don't know why. It's working to its own time. You'll also notice that with these notifications here that we're getting those digital queue lodgement and timesheet approval notifications as well. All right. The other thing is we can also have reminders. So when an event or job is added to the calendar and set for a reminder, that's going to appear then in a pop-up window. So if I go back to my home screen and have a look at my calendar in here, just waiting for it to appear. So I have my job here, my job event, and you see here I can go in straight into here to edit the actual job itself, and I'll have the priorities, and my reminder should come on when I add it to my calendar. We talked about this area before in the My Lodgements, so I'm not going to cover that.
To the music app.
For some reason my Siri decided to talk to me for no reason whatsoever. My apologies. So let's focus now a little bit more on the actual My Practice and setting up our jobs. How this is going to make it more efficient for you to run your practice, how you can make sure that by setting up tasks and checklists that you're covering off all the things you want to cover off with each task that you have or each job that you have, and you can assign those things to your staff and then review. So I have one question there. So I'm going to talk about what we set up first in a moment, Cheryl, for you. So I have always gone through and set up my tasks first. So as I mentioned, the practice management is free with your subscription. And when we look at the jobs here, you can see the My Jobs, the Scheduled Jobs, the My Tasks, the Templates, and the Job Summary. The reason I set up the tasks first is you need the tasks to appear in the jobs. So think about the tasks you want to set up. What are the things that you do? So if we take a look at, I'm just going to show you here very quickly, the My Tasks. So you can see here, there's a task about approving timesheets. When you set up your tasks and templates, you'll find that there are default task templates such as BAS preparation. So think about those tasks that you want to do and put into a job on a regular basis and set those up first. Think about what it is that you have in those as a checklist. So if I click on that one there, can you see here that these are all the things I want to check for? In my end of year guide, these are the things I want to check for. In my custom task templates, these are ones which I have designed or cloned. So I've taken the BAS preparation checklist and added things in to be specific for MYOB. So certain reports I might want to run to substantiate all my workings, and the same with QuickBooks Online and Xero. So in here in my quarterly BAS checklist, you see that I've only set up a few ones in this one, but you can see I've added in check for this, check for that. And as things are done, they can be checked off. So that is why I say to you, set up your tasks first. So just take the time to think about the processes that you want to document, because this is really, in a way, it is documenting your practices, processes, and creating like a policies and procedure within the practice management tool. So the scheduled jobs. These are the jobs that are already set up. So you can see here, this is the weekly wages. It starts on this date. The last occurrence was here and the next occurrence is here, and its status is active. In the actions, you have the option to open that to edit it, or you have the option to delete it if it's no longer applicable. The My Tasks, as I mentioned before, these are already set up within existing jobs, and you'll see the different job number here. So that, it's the same company in this case, but it's different job numbers. Now, as we mentioned, we have our task templates, which are broken down into the 4 areas: that default, the custom, the job template, and the recurring job template. So we mentioned about the default task that comes with already. So let's look at creating a task template by either cloning an existing one or creating a new one. So let's look at that. Let's go to a default task template here, and you can see here I'm going to do a payroll end of year checklist, and you can see on the right hand side, to duplicate this I can simply click clone, and I give that template a name. If I want to share that with members of my account, I would do so. Otherwise, I can say no, and I can save it. So now you'll see that we have a payroll end of year checklist for MYOB. And you can see here that I can go in and I can add another task to it. I can attach it to a specific job. So the first thing I would do is, if I want to edit anything within here, I can go through into my checklist, I can remove, and I can add things to my checklist. I can click the add to add things to my checklist, or I can remove things from my checklist. And once I've done that, I will save it. If I want to add another task altogether within this area, I'll go New Task, and it will allow me to add that in and then create my own checklist to go with it. Once I'm happy, I will go through and I will attach it to a specific job if I want to add it to a specific job at this stage. But just bear in mind, at this stage I'm just creating my templates to begin with. Once I'm done, I'm happy, it's all happy and done. And so now I have my payroll end of year checklist, MYOB. My default task template has still got my payroll end of year checklist, but now I have this additional one that specifically says MYOB. Now, if I want to create a template from scratch, I go to my task template, and I'm in my custom task template here. I go new, and I can create a new template. So I will call this STP Lodgement monthly payrolls, and I will save that template. Now I have this new one in here, and now when I click onto this one here, I can set up my tasks within here. I can go through and edit and actually go through and set up the different things within this part. So it might be check payroll data is correct. So in the checklist, I would add things such as, check all payroll data, submit STP report to ATO, and just save. So now within that, I'm just putting two things in there, very simple things. Within my STP lodgement payrolls, I now have my tasks and my checklist. Once again, I could go to that next stage and actually attach it to a job, but I will, at this stage, I'm leaving that because I'm going to show you how we can attach that to a job later. Once again, if I find that I haven't added everything in my checklist, I can simply click on this edit and go to my checklist and add the additional things I need before saving it. So once you've gone through and created your task templates, it's now time to create your job templates. So a job template here, we go to a job template and I click on New. This allows me to create a one-time task. So this allows me to create a one-off task, and a one-off job, I should say. Dawn has asked the question, are the checklists provided with the subscription? The checklists are going to be what it is in your practice. There will be some that are in the default task templates, which will have a checklist in there. But any that you create yourself, brand new ones, then you will have all the steps that you take in your practice to make sure that you have completed everything to fulfill that task. I hope that answers the question for you, Dawn. So this is the one, as I mentioned, is not recurring in nature. Can you see there is nothing there mentioned about recurring it, about it being recurring? Now, I'm going to show you how we set up a recurring one, just because that's the most common ones you're going to have. You may have the one-off jobs. It might be rescue jobs where you're going through and just doing the bookkeeping and you need to set a whole series of tasks to be done. Or it could be that you have recurring ones in nature like payroll and BASs and IASs and superannuation, etc. So I'm going to come out of the job template and go to the recurring job template. Now when I click on New at the top right here, you can see here it gets an option now to have the frequency. So Cheryl, just to answer your question and just to allay any confusion with people, the reason we set the tasks and checklists up to them first, we will attach them to a client, but we will have a job associated with a client rather than just the task associated with the client. So if I go back to my default task template here and I choose one of the custom ones, so this one for example, you don't see anywhere here where you're actually attaching it to a client. You're not attaching the task to the client, you're attaching the job to the client. The tasks are associated with the jobs. Does that answer the question for you, Cheryl? And just allay any confusion for everyone? Wonderful. Okay, so let's go to our recurring job template. So here we're going to go New, and in here we will set up the name. What is the job name going to be? Now, I can use one recurring job template, and I'm going to show you how when we go through and allocate it and pick up the tasks and everything and attach it to clients, how we've got that one template that can be, job template that can be used multiple times. So I'm going to call this the monthly IAS for PAYG only. Oh, my keyboard is having fun. So we're not talking about GST here. If I'm billing people on hours or on client hours or on staff hours, then I could use this functionality here. In here, I give the template a name. I'm a bit lazy and I tend to use the same sort of name. How often is it going to occur? Monthly. When's it going to start? I'm going to start this on the 1st of the 3rd, 20. And I haven't got an end date in mind for it. and I want it to create this one plus one in the future as well. How many days do I want to set it for scheduling? How long should that take? I want this to be completed by the 10th day of the month. What sort of priority? High, medium, low. This is high because it's got a deadline. And at the moment, it's not started. And if I have other staff, I can choose to manage it by someone else, and I can that way it is assigned to my staff member. But there's only me in this one. Then I go next. Now I can choose one of the templates that we created previously. So if I go custom task template and I choose here, I will find the ones that I have set up. Now, obviously, I haven't set one up for this one, but I'm just going to pick anything for the moment just to do that. And then I click copy. I'm going to copy those tasks. So now, here are all the tasks that have to be done in relation to this. And now I've done that, I can save it. So I have my recurring job template that's been saved now. Now I can go through and attach it to my clients and choose whichever clients it might be. So I've associated it with this one. Okay, it tells you it's been successful. It's always nice to get a little green light to tell you that you've done it right. And we've attached the client now. Now if I go to my scheduled jobs, you will see now that I have my monthly IAS PAYG only, the Field International showing there, due to start on the 1st of the 3rd, and the next occurrence is on the 1st of the 4th. So now if I go to this little My Jobs area, all my current jobs will display. And I can sort this by job name, by deadline, however I'd like to do it. So I'm going to change so it shows 100 things at once. And you'll see down here, here is my Field International with the schedule, and I told it was 10 days I wanted it to be scheduled by. And now when it comes time to actually starting my job, I can now open my job, and as work is performed, I can cross the things off my checklist. So if I've completed this whole section, I can tick this box up here, mark it as completed, and edit this and say this part is completed. Now I can go to the main, and I can actually update my status. It's not open, not started anymore. It's really in progress. So I can save that. So in here now, I have all my jobs here. I can go through here and I can filter them to show me just the ones that are in process. And so you can see the ones that are in process. I can see the ones that have been finalised. So you can see that they've been finalised. Now I'm going to show you with the schedule jobs about, once they're created, if you've found that you've made a mistake or something. So this, say I've got this one here as weekly wages, but really I realise it should have been monthly wages. So I've made a mistake. So I'm going to call this monthly wages, and I'm going to choose this to start now monthly. Well, from the 15th, we'll take the day before, and I'm going to go next, and I'm going to save those changes. What I'm now going to do is look at my scheduled jobs. I'm going to have a look actually at my jobs here, and all those jobs for Resina, which were weekly payrolls, which were wrong, I can in one bit actually go through for all the weekly ones. And I could even go through and just have this here as they're going to be open, and I want to be open, not started, and I want the client name to be RAS Resina, and the job name I'm going to put in weekly and see what it finds for me. Sometimes I can be a little too specific, so let me take out the weekly and just leave that as it is. Search. No, it doesn't like that either. So sometimes it's a little bit of fiddling. Let me try another search. The wrong one. No, it doesn't like my name for some reason, and I don't know why. It's just I never usually have this much trouble with it, so let's just do it this way. I'm going to sort it by name, and basically what I want to do is get rid of all the ones that say weekly wages, because as I said, these ones were done in error. And so I could go through and then tickle them all and click delete jobs to get rid of those excess ones that are in this if I've done it in error. So that's how you get rid of a mistake that you may have made. As you can see, there's a few there. Once again, I can sort it back by deadline. I can have all the different statuses showing, or I can choose to show just the ones might be open, finalized, etc. So this is how also we can make sure that we have our schedule there. We can plan our jobs. We can set the schedule up. It can appear on our calendar. We can assign the jobs to people. We can set the tasks and checklists as part of our policies and procedures, which makes it really something very valuable. When you see that you have policies and procedures in place and checklists, it makes it really easy for people to see that you have a process and you're professional in what you're doing. So the other thing I wanted to show you was the weekly report. So in the settings at the top here, in the My Account, and just waiting for that to come up, and notification settings, in here is where you can turn off the weekly report if you don't want the weekly report to come out to you by just unchecking it and submitting it. So that gives you an overview of how you can use the practice management tool. You can use the calendar. You can use the time billing part of it. You can see that there are a number of reports. So you can also do this by work week. So you can change the way the layout of the calendar is. You can have it in agenda format. You can have it in a timeline. I think probably the monthly one probably gives a great overview for everybody. So that you can see what's happening. Once again, you have some reports here. So if you are utilising the practice management tool if you are still billing by hour and you're using the hours that you work in here to record and generate your invoices for you, you can utilise this area here and generate the reports and generate the invoice report. So that sort of brings us to a conclusion of the practice management tool and a quick overview of things such as Google Calendar and notifications and setting things up. So I'm going to open the floor for questions. Are there questions that we have? We've had some questions as we've been going along. Are there any other questions that people have on how I might utilise it in my practice? So I'll give you a little bit of feedback of what I do here. So I have some staff who have come on in the last 18 months or so, and they are now starting to utilise this area of GovReports. For a long time, they would perform the work and I would go through and update all the jobs and tick them all off and mark them as done. The other thing I do want to show you that I forgot to show you, and I really should because I think it's one of the best things in the job area. How many of you want to have documentation to substantiate why you came to that conclusion in preparing that BAS? So when we've got a job here and we start a job, for example, if I'm using QuickBooks Online, I have a series of reports that I will export in a PDF format. And what I then do is I add these as attachments. Just bear with me, I'm just going to mute while I cough. So in the settings up here, in the account settings, you can tell it where you want these attachments to be saved. So mine is linked to my Dropbox. So in here, you can then add an attachment. You can click either on here or click on here. Add your Dropbox attachment. It's not enabled on here, but normally you'll get an option here to upload the document, and that will save it with that specific job number. So I'm just going to try and sort of find one to sort of show you on my Dropbox so you sort of see. So in my Dropbox, and I'll just minimize this screen a little bit so you can see. In my Dropbox here, you'll see this Office Manager, and you'll see here Client, and these are all the client names, which I'm not going to go through and show you too much of. But within each of those jobs, each of those clients will be each of those jobs that you have finalized and done. And when you add your attachments in, it's those attachments that are saved in your Dropbox. So your substantiating documentation can be added to here. So things like in MYOB, things like the GST reports, the tax reconciliation report, the cash tax codes report, the tax codes report for the invoices and payroll, all those sorts of things. You can download them all as PDFs and add them as your Dropbox. So you'll find in your Office Manager under that client name, this job number will be listed, and within that job number it will have your name as the person who saved it, and in there you will see all the attachments that you have saved. So you have all your substantiating documentation saved here. You don't have to save pieces of paper anymore. I'm not 100% sure of your question there, Susan, in regards to the time billing specifying what the task was, but with no dollar value. So the packet, I actually, I don't use the time billing within here myself, but what so in here, I just, when I set it up, if I'm using a different package, I just don't select any billing method. Is that sort of what you mean? So that way, I just keep track of things when a job is done that I will bill by my monthly fee or whatever it may be. So I don't actually set anything up here for this. So I mean, because these are the ones based on job, based on class, based on staff. So if you're not billing in hours, then you wouldn't necessarily utilize that area. Are there any other questions that you might have in regards to the utilization of this and how it's, you know, I think that one of the things this does is it makes you extremely organized. When you come in the morning and you look at the My Jobs, you know exactly what's due, when it's due, you can plan in advance, you know when things are going to come up by looking at your calendar. So thinking about things like holidays and staff allocation, you can see all of that in one spot. So that's where it becomes really handy. Are there any other questions that anyone has? Just leave it a minute just to see if anyone has any more questions. Next question, have you found this useful? Do you think that you could utilize this in your practice to help you so that you have everything in one place? All your returns through the lodgements area up here, and all your jobs through the managing of your practice through the My Practice area. Do you think that is going to be useful to you? Any feedback there? The refreshing has to get a little quicker. The web page is very slow. That could just be mine. I don't know if you're already utilising it. But once again, if that's in general, great feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say that this is the test environment, the test server, so it will be very slow when compared to the production. So the production will be a lot quicker than the test account.
Oh, so it's a test account that's a bit slow?
Yeah.
Yeah, because mine refreshes faster. Yeah, mine is a lot faster than that. My production one is a lot faster. I'm glad to hear, Eileen, that this has helped, this webinar has helped you to see what to do. Fantastic. Cheryl, I'm glad to see that, you know, yes, look, I have to say that when I first started using this, it took a little, you know, it took some trial and error and learning, and at that stage it was really brand new, so there weren't very many people utilising it yet, so I didn't have anyone I could really talk to aside from the GovReports team, who were extremely helpful. And it was going through and putting it together myself and working out what would work for me and what would work for my team. And sometimes it took, you know, some tweaking, but it works. And it, you know what, I wouldn't be without it now. It's you know, rather than having a scrap list saying what has to be done, I have this on my desktop and I know what has to be done. And if it's not marked off, you know, it's fantastic. So Dawn, it's free with you. If you've got GovReports already, it's free with GovReports. I don't know if you don't have GovReports, if there's a trial version. Sandeep may be able to answer that question better than I can.
For new users, we have 30 days trial. They can sign up from the GovReports website for the new users.
All right. Are there any other questions before we end it for the evening? Doesn't look like it. Well, I hope that has been really useful. Remember, this is being recorded, so if you want to see the screenshots of the PDF on going through the steps of setting things up and then how we did it actually in GovReports itself, in the Practice Manager itself, then go and access that recording and you can watch it as you're trying to do things. So hopefully that will be of great use to you. So good feedback, Cheryl. I'm sure that another webinar, a little slow on the particular setups. This is more of an overview and takes you very quickly through bits and pieces, but that's something, feedback back to GovReports that I can certainly pass on. But there's only so much you can sort of show because everyone will be different. So fantastic. Thank you so much for the feedback. And it would be great if there were some templates you could steal, yes, but you know what? Just think about what you do every day in your work, and if you write that down on paper, there's your template already created. It took me a while to create my own templates, and even now I have ones which I tweak every now and then as well, especially when Single Touch Payroll came in. That's always made it wonderful. So thank you everyone for this evening, and there are other GovReports webinars coming up in the next week or so, so that will be fantastic. I don't think it's a link sent for the webinar recording, Sandeep, is that right? It just is on the GovReports webinars website. It's on the website, is that right?
That's right. It will be available on the GovReports webinar web page, which will be available under past webinars, the tab.
Fantastic. All right, well, thank you everyone, and good evening, and have a nice evening.